You're listening to the Small Business Accelerator podcast, accelerating success, one founder at a time.
With your hosts, Roger Bryant and Sarah Wilson.
We support small business owners, the little guys. We're here to help you win in today's landscape.
Join us each week as we reveal powerful strategies for small business owners that save you time and money.
Because we believe every small business owner should have access to Fortune 500 style strategies without breaking the bank.
Subscribe now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to accelerate your small business success.
Hey learner, ready to escape the 80-hour workweek trap? We've got quite the toolkit for you today.
Oh, we do.
Excerpts from a podcast on AI, a deep dive document on the problem and potential solutions, and even a sneak peek at an automation course designed for entrepreneurs.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us.
We do. Where do we even begin with all this?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? You've highlighted a collection of resources that really demonstrate how this isn't just a personal struggle. We're practically hardwired for the 80-hour week thanks to a blend of historical trends, technology, and cultural expectations.
It's true. It's like we're all playing a part in a system we didn't even design. But let's dig into that a bit more. What exactly do you mean by hardwired?
Think about it. The Industrial Revolution really set the stage for this time equals money mentality. But then enter the digital age, suddenly we have laptops, smartphones, this expectation of constant connectivity,
Right.
particularly in fast-paced fields like tech and finance. That's where the always-on pressure really takes root.
And to top it off, we're often surrounded by this narrative that glorifies long hours as the ultimate badge of honor.
Oh, absolutely.
Like putting in 80 hours a week is the only way to get ahead.
It's a recipe for burnout, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And speaking of burnout, remember that Goldman Sachs survey where analysts reported working an average of 95-hour weeks?
Oh, yeah. It's a prime example of how this pressure to overwork can become especially intense within certain industries,
Yeah.
leading to potentially detrimental consequences.
95 hours. It's almost unfathomable. But it makes you wonder at what cost.
Burnout is a very real and costly issue, not just for individuals, but for companies as well. There's a growing body of research highlighting the health risks associated with chronic overwork, from heart disease to decreased productivity.
And here's the kicker. Working more doesn't necessarily equate to achieving more.
No, it does not.
In fact, it often leads to the opposite.
Precisely. Studies show that consistently pushing beyond our limits leads to diminished cognitive function and a decline in creativity. It's simply not sustainable in the long run.
So how do we break free from this cycle? It can feel overwhelming to even imagine a different way of working.
You're absolutely right. Many people feel trapped in this cycle. But the good news is that it doesn't require a complete life overhaul to reclaim your time and well-being. We can start by looking at solutions being implemented today. One of the most talked about is the 4-day work week, which is gaining traction.
It's true. It's not just a pipe dream anymore. We've got real-world examples like the UK's recent trial where a shorter work week actually led to increased productivity and happier employees.
I love that study.
Did you see those results? Productivity jumped by a significant percentage. Some companies reported double-digit increases and employee satisfaction scores were through the roof.
Yeah, these are not isolated incidents.
That was great.
Companies across various industries are experimenting with this model and seeing the benefits firsthand. It really challenges that deeply ingrained belief that we're taught to accept. The longer hours equal better results.
Right. It's refreshing to see such a clear example of how challenging these outdated assumptions about work can actually lead to positive change.
Yeah.
For both the individual and the company as a whole. It's a win-win. So where do we go from here?
That's the exciting part. While not every company is ready to embrace such a radical shift just yet, there are smaller, more manageable changes we can make right now to break free from the 80-hour week and design a more fulfilling and balanced work life.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of changes are we talking about?
Well, one of the simplest yet most effective changes is setting boundaries.
Boundaries, that sounds easy enough. But how do you actually enforce those boundaries when you're facing a mountain of work and constant demands?
It starts with getting clear about your priorities, both professionally and personally. What truly matters to you? What are your non-negotiables when it comes to your time and well-being?
Okay, so identifying those core values and priorities is the first step. Then what?
Once you have that clarity, it becomes easier to make conscious decisions about where you invest your time and energy. It might mean declining a meeting invite that doesn't align with your top priorities, or delegating tasks that can be handled by someone else.
It's about learning to say no strategically, so you can say yes to the things that truly matter. That reminds me, we've got that automation course in the mix. Wouldn't that fall under this umbrella of working smarter, not harder?
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue into another powerful tool for escaping the 80-hour trap: automation. Now, when you hear automation, you might immediately think of complex AI systems or robots taking over the world, but that's not necessarily the case. It can be much simpler.
Right. It's not about replacing humans entirely. It's about strategically leveraging technology to handle those tedious, repetitive tasks that tend to eat up our time and energy.
Exactly. Even small doses of automation can be a game changer. Think about those administrative tasks that bog you down every week. Things like scheduling appointments, sending follow-up emails, or organizing data. Automating those processes can free up hours in your week, giving you more time to focus on higher-level tasks that require human creativity and problem-solving skills.
So instead of spending hours manually inputting data into a spreadsheet, you can automate that process and use that time to brainstorm new ideas with your team or connect with clients.
Precisely, and that's just one example. The possibilities are endless. The key takeaway here is that you don't need to be a tech whiz to benefit from automation. Start small, experiment with different tools and platforms, and see what works best for you and your workflow.
That's a great point. It's about finding tools that complement your skills and make your life easier, not more complicated. And it's funny because we often think about automation as this scary thing, this job-stealing monster. But what if instead it's actually the key to unlocking more time, more freedom, and ultimately a more fulfilling work life?
It's a fascinating shift in perspective, isn't it? And it speaks to this larger conversation around the future of work. As technology continues to evolve, it's not about fearing the machines, it's about learning to work alongside them in a way that enhances our human capabilities.
Okay, so we've talked about setting boundaries and embracing automation, but what about the elephant in the room? What about the deeply ingrained belief that we have to work a certain number of hours to be considered valuable or successful? How do we shift that mindset both individually and collectively?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's not an easy one to answer. But I think it starts with awareness. As more and more individuals and organizations wake up to the detrimental effects of this always-on culture, we start to chip away at those old, outdated beliefs.
It's like we're collectively realizing that there's a better way to work and live, a way that prioritizes well-being, creativity, and sustainable productivity over simply logging hours.
Exactly. And as this awareness grows, it creates a ripple effect. Individuals feel empowered to set boundaries. Leaders feel inspired to implement more flexible work policies, and eventually those cultural norms start to shift.
And it's not just about individuals and companies. It's about policymakers and thought leaders challenging the status quo and advocating for policies that support a healthier, more balanced relationship with work.
Precisely. It's a multifaceted challenge that requires a systemic approach.
So it sounds like escaping the 80-hour workweek trap isn't just about individual action. It's about a collective awakening, a shift in our collective consciousness about what work should look like in the 21st century.
Absolutely. And while it's a complex and ongoing process, there's reason for optimism. The conversation is evolving, and more people are waking up to the possibility of a different future. A future where work is a source of fulfillment, not just a means to an end.
It's about reclaiming our time, prioritizing our well-being, and designing a life that reflects our values, not the outdated expectations of the past.
Well said. And that brings us to another crucial piece of the puzzle, one that often gets overlooked in our quest for productivity.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. What is this crucial piece of the puzzle that we're overlooking?
It's not just about doing less work. It's about creating the conditions for us to do our best work. The kind of work that energizes us, that makes a real difference, and that leaves us feeling fulfilled instead of frazzled.
That makes sense. We've talked about boundaries, automation. Those are all great tools. But even with those in place, there's still this pressure to constantly be on, to be churning out work at maximum capacity. How do we escape that hamster wheel mentality and create space for the kind of deep, meaningful work you're talking about?
One powerful approach, and one that's often surprisingly overlooked, is the power of intentional disconnection. And I'm not just talking about taking a quick lunch break here or there. I'm talking about creating dedicated time for our minds to truly unplug, wander, and recharge.
Okay, so no checking emails during lunch, no scrolling through work messages while waiting in line at the coffee shop, actually truly disconnecting. I can see how that might be a challenge for some, myself included. But how do we make that shift when we're so used to being constantly connected?
It starts with recognizing that disconnection isn't just about giving ourselves a break. It's actually an investment in our productivity and creativity. There's a growing body of research that shows when we allow ourselves time for unstructured thinking, for our minds to wander and make new connections, we unlock a level of innovation and problem solving that simply isn't accessible when we're constantly tethered to the demands of the digital world.
It's like that saying, the best ideas come to you in the shower when you're relaxed, not actively trying to force creativity.
Exactly. It's in those moments of intentional disconnection, whether it's taking a walk in nature, listening to music, meditating, or simply allowing ourselves to daydream, that our minds can wander, make unexpected connections, and generate our most groundbreaking ideas.
So it's not about squeezing more work into every waking hour. It's about creating the space for our best work to emerge organically. And sometimes that requires stepping away from the desk, disconnecting from the digital noise, and allowing ourselves to simply be.
Precisely. And the beauty of this approach is that it benefits not just our work lives, but our overall well-being as well. When we prioritize intentional disconnection, we're also prioritizing our mental health, our relationships, and our overall quality of life.
It's about creating a more holistic and sustainable way of working and living. And it's funny because we often associate productivity, busyness with constantly doing more, but what if true productivity is actually about creating the space for our best selves to show up both in our work and in our lives? Now you're getting it. Escaping the 80-hour workweek trap isn't just about reducing our hours. It's about fundamentally shifting our relationship with work. It's about recognizing that our worth as individuals is not solely defined by our output, by how much we produce or how many hours we log.
It's about reclaiming our time, prioritizing our well-being, and designing a life that reflects our values, not the outdated expectations of the past. It's about working smarter, not harder.
It is. It's about creating a world where work is a source of fulfillment, not just a means to an end.
On that note, learner, we'll leave you with this final thought. What if the real measure of success isn't how much we work, but how well we live? Until next time, keep diving. Thanks for tuning in to the Small Business Accelerator podcast.
We really hope today's strategies help you grow your business without breaking the bank.
Don't forget to check the show notes for links to resources we've handpicked for small business success.
If you found value in today's episode, it would make our day if you subscribed to the podcast and left us a review.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And stay tuned for our next episode. Next time, we'll reveal yet another game-changing strategy that's revolutionizing how small businesses on a shoestring budget take on giant corporations and accelerate their success.
Until then, keep accelerating your success.
This is Sarah Wilson.
And Roger Bryant, signing off.